Thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of the Gut Wrench Podcast. This week, I played myself, believe it or not. I don't mean to make any references to DJ Khaled or any other relevant and or irrelevant DJs. And before we get to the situation here on episode 105 of the Gut Wrench Podcast, there's something I need to clear up. Something that I feel as though that needs to have a little bit of discussion here on the Gut Wrench Podcast. Now that we've had that discussion, let's go ahead and move on to our first contest of the week. Of the week? Okay. Yeah, this is a weekly podcast based in professional wrestling. Is it based? I don't necessarily know what that means. Also, the discussion that I wanted to have, I just forgot what I was going to say, but now I remembered it again. I am looking for sponsors. I would be willing to take any sponsors as long as it's not drug related. Now, a lot of you thought that I just swerved you or whatever. Oh, I missed the discussion or whatever. No, I goofed. I forgot what it was that I was trying to say. But anyway, before we get into today's episode, as long as it's not drug related, I am looking for a sponsor. You see, if you're something like Bud Light, I don't care how much money that you're going to pay me, or you tell me that you're going to pay me for using, promo code Bud Light at the checkout. You can order your Bud Light offline and be sure to thank the fine folks at the Gut Wrench Podcast. See, I'm not about getting drunk. I'm not about getting high. I'm not about getting all these things, hey, use promo code cigarettes at checkout. That's not funny. Even the fucking gummies, if the fucking THC gummy place tried to do a deal with me, I would turn them down. Doesn't really matter how much money that they're willing to fork over, because it's not about the money, it's about the principle. So yeah, I wouldn't take their beer money. Do you get it? Beer money? I wouldn't take their beer money. For those of you obvious non-professional wrestling fans who are just here for the giggles, we've talked about beer money here on the podcast, on the show before. For those of you who are wrestling fans, you're going to feel as though that I'm insulting your intelligence. You're going to feel as though that I'm SpongeBob talking to you, who more than likely is a professional wrestling fan. You would be, in this case, Mrs. Puff. There's an episode that goes with that consistency, believe it or not. And you're going to be thinking, oh, I know, SpongeBob, I'm the one that taught you that. Or whatever else that, there's just a small clip that I'm referencing. I'm trying to reference SpongeBob while referencing professional wrestling. 2 references in one go. That's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And, for that matter, they're 2 obscure references that I never thought that I'd put together. Not to mention the fact that one time, SpongeBob and Patrick also wrestled each other for the Fry Cook Games. Something like that. Anyway, I digress. I'm going on a tangent, and I'm still not making any sense. So, for those of you wondering, what's beer money, what's the deal with that? It's James Storm and Bobby Roode, who would later become Robert Roode, or who would earlier become Robert Roode and then go back to being Bobby Roode. It doesn't matter how you look at it, because Bobby is short for Robert, no matter, how you slice the bologna. Like I said earlier, I played myself this episode. How exactly did I do that? Well, it took me 4 days. 4 fucking days to get these notes together. I still haven't started on the episode, despite us being almost 5 minutes into the episode. Well, I thought that I was just going to be looking at an episode of ECW, because that's what I primarily had set up. You know what I'm going to do this week? I'm going to go ahead and get a head start on my podcast. That's what I said. And then I went ahead and started to get a head start on my podcast, but I was looking for a particular match to help me make a point that I made last week so that I could keep the continuity going, keep the continuous train of momentum that I had going. But guess what? That train's now been derailed, and now I got to start from fucking scrap. What exactly is it that I'm mandering on about? And not only that, but you remember the episode where I told you that I had a gun pointed at me? Well, thanks to a child, two children and an adult who were passing a football near the church that I usually am recording at, I had to take cover somewhere else because I didn't want them to, possibly hear the fact that I was going on a rant in my headphones about professional wrestling. So the place where I had the gun pointed at me almost 2 or 3 months ago, yeah, I'm back to there, and I'm a little bit nervous, if you will. But anyway, I digress. Hopefully I don't get another gun pointed on me, and hopefully this episode goes well. Here's what happened. I was looking for CM Punk versus John Morrison. I was looking for the close finish that they had during the ECW show that I remember seeing, because they spent like 3 months, I want to say 2.5 months, building up to this certain match, because of course John Morrison was the ECW champion. Everyone, including John Morrison himself, believed that he could beat CM Punk under any circumstances whatsoever, and he just basically lied to himself, because even though it was a beat the clock challenge and all CM Punk had to do, all John Morrison had to do was basically survive one more second. If I remember correctly, CM Punk himself had John Morrison in the Anaconda Vice, and John Morrison tapped out before the clock ran down. I could be remembering something else. Maybe I'm a little bit forgetful, because as a child, you tend to forget things. And not only that, but this episode is probably around, I don't know, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say 5 minutes. I'm not looking at the time, because in order to do that, I'd have to close my notes. Around 5 minutes in, and we're still not getting to the wrestling action. Some of you who are, probably at your house eating a prime rib steak, laughing about the fact that someone on PayPal this past week, sent me $1 as a donation. Thank you so much. That's the first ever donation that I've ever had here on the Gut Wrench podcast. Anyway, WWE Slammy Awards in 2008. Okay, so here's the thing. I technically did what I set out to do. Technically. Because the first match of the night is John Morrison facing off against CM Punk. But it wasn't the match that I was looking for. This was only one match of storied rivalry that the two of them would end up having. Anyway, throughout the night they will be giving away awards, by the way, for those of you not aware. They already gave out a few awards, and those include the Breakout Star of the Year, Vladimir Kozlov. If you remember Vladimir Kozlov, I think that Vladimir Kozlov looks like Walter or Gunter. So, if you're listening to this, you can't tell me that I'm not wrong if you're a wrestling fan and you're listening to this. Anyway, best announcer team apparently went to Todd Gresham and Matt Stryker, and all of the announcers on the commentary desk were extremely upset about that. Well, I mean, they laughed it off, but you could tell that they were a little sour grapes. These are primarily the awards that they gave out online. They probably gave out a few more. I'm just missing them, and I didn't write them down. But anyway, WWE Slammy Awards in 2008. We take a look at this year's highlights and the year of the hype package. They say it's a 3-hour special, but it says here on Peacock that it's only 2 hours and 11 minutes. That means that when this aired live, there was 50 minutes of ads. Boy, I'd be pissed. I'd be madder. I mean, they better be Super Bowl ads. No way I'm sitting through fucking 50 plus minutes of commercials. I'm about to be mad and send the TV provider a nasty email. I'm going to send them a letter in the mail with a sad face on it. Like a, fucking crying emote. Also, I have the best news that anyone could ever ask for. I can possibly watch Friday Night SmackDown now on the regular. I'll just have to write down the dates, because apparently Peacock is around 3 weeks behind, from what I'm told. So they update them every 3 weeks. So like right now, they would be like uploading the episodes from 3 weeks ago in the WWE's repertoire. But anyway, the good news, everyone. Hopefully I sound like Professor Farnsworth whenever I say that. Kevin Owens got suspended. In recent news, he has been suspended, and according to wrestling analysts and the Dirt Sheet websites, which are like the websites that tell you, hey, was this planned? Was this... like, say if I was on TV, right? And they threw me through a 5-star, Holy crap. That'd be pretty good for them to throw me through a 5-star window. But a 5-story window. And, it wasn't actually me. It was like a stunt double or something. Good news is, I'm not hurt. Bad news is the guy who's laying there probably is hurt. But let's say that they weren't a stunt double. Let's say that they were to capture something that wasn't supposed to happen. Let me give you an example. Here's an example of the kayfabe that was supposed to happen. Brian Pillman pulled a gun once upon a time on a Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin. And as soon as he pulled the gun, the camera feed that they had, I'm putting that in air quotes, ended up just going away. Brian Pillman pulled a gun on Steve Austin after Steve Austin came to his house and ended up drowning like 10 security guards and beating the hell out of like the other 3. But a lot of people had to ask the question, what? That looked so fake. Look, he pulled out the gun and then all of a sudden. My point is that is Kevin Owens really suspended, or is this more of a, hey, Kevin, go home, I'm going to put this in air quotes, suspended, Is it really a suspension? But according to the dirt sheets that I was able to encounter, he was suspended. Now, if you don't know, the WWE has a 3-strike policy. Per every 90 days that you do get a strike on your supposed record, that brings you one step closer to being fired. 90 days. Kevin Owens has 2 strikes left. Imagine a baseball game that took fucking 90 days. Anyway, According to a wrestling analyst, this is not kayfabe. Suspension is a go home and stay away from the show suspension. I still got happy hearing the mid 2000s Raw intro from Papa Roach in what I'm assuming is Pittsburgh, PA, because that's where they say that they're from, and that'll become abundantly clear later on through the night if you know who Jimmy Rollins is. If you don't, he is a baseball player, but we'll get to that whenever we get to it. To present the first award giving out, the first award being presented, Maria and Festus. And I couldn't draw a line. I couldn't really, what? I was like, wait a minute. Maria and Festus? Are you fucking serious? What do they have in common? And I had to pause Peacock for a minute, and before they came out, which, by the way, they didn't use Maria's theme song. They used Festus's theme song, Biscuits and Gravy. God damn it. They could have used this more sexy theme song, but, I mean, they had an opportunity to, legs like that. But instead, they didn't. I deduct points for that, by the way. But anyway, here to present the first award, which is Tag Team of the Year, I think. I think I see why they put them together. I think I see the chemistry. It's because they're both stupid. Luke Gallows has come a long way from being the bumbling retard. Excuse my language. Apparently I'm not allowed to say that anymore. The bumbling retard who stands there with his mouth open, not saying a single word. So did Maria. She would later go on to be on the cover of Playboy and go on to win NJPW, that's New Japan Pro Wrestling for those of you who aren't wrestling connoisseurs. She would go on to win championships in Impact Wrestling as well. And she would also be known as the, quote, First Lady of Wrestling, or the First Lady of Impact, depending upon who you believe and what narrative you choose to follow. I'm really not sure which one it was, whether it was the First Lady of Pro Wrestling or the First Lady of Impact Wrestling. I don't see why she was called that either. I didn't watch Impact Wrestling a lot. Did watch it a little bit. But that's only because my friend kept, hey man, did you watch Impact last night? Hey man, did you watch Impact last night? And I was like, no, I was busy watching WWE. John Cena. I couldn't see him, but I was looking for him the whole night. Anyway, Tag Team of the Year. The nominees are Carlito and Promo, Priceless, Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr., The Miz and John Morrison, and Crime Time. Okay, so those were the nominees, the winners for Tag Team of the Year, The Miz and John Morrison. They come up to the arena, they're celebrating, they're slapping each other's hands, and the crowd the entire time is chanting, "You suck" at them. They're giving the award acceptance speech. Morrison and Miz are thanking their parents and Abraham Lincoln and Mr. T and Chuck Norris and Admiral Akbar and Baba Booey. I don't know who most of these people are, and they said a few other names too that I wasn't able to write down because Morrison his mouth was moving a mile a minute. Well, more than, 100 miles a minute, I should say. We told those people, yes, we can. So, of course, he talked about the fact that, there were a lot of haters, a lot of doubters, a lot of critics, a lot of people who said that they couldn't do it. And he said, so if you don't know, this was 2008. What was happening at 2008? Well, of course, Barack Obama was about to be the first, well, I mean, he was one of the nominees, just like Miz and Morrison were. But Barack Obama was about to become the first black president. So, and his campaign slogan. Do you want to know what it was? If I remember correctly, it was "Yes, we can." Anyway, back to what I was saying. What was Barack Obama's campaign slogan? Believe it or not, it was "Yes, we can." So, that makes like the second time, honestly, that I've noticed that they've stolen something from Barack Obama's, actually from a campaign slogan, rather. I'm sorry, not Barack Obama's. Well, not Miz and Morrison, but WWE. And, you know, it's funny. It's funny to me because the second person to do it would have been years later. Kevin Owens would become the United States champion. Yeah, I know. I was about to throw. Excuse me. I was about to hurl chunks too, just like I was right about now. But Kevin Owens became the WWE United States champion, and he said that he wanted to, quote, "make America great again." Make the United States Championship great again, or something like that. Yeah, but that lasted nothing but about 2 or 3 weeks. And then after that, he just dropped it. I mean, he went home, right? And he did something that I'd asked him to do, been asking him to do, and that's to shave that rat off of his face. Because if you know anything about corporate America, you know the fact that if you don't try to make a good impression, like you can't go into a company with a beard like fucking ZZ Top and hair that looks like it hasn't been combed in years and hope to get the job in a job interview. And that's one of the things that I've had a humongous problem with as far as Kevin Owens goes, is that he doesn't care how he looks to all of these companies. Not to mention that for a big guy, he doesn't exactly move the way that he's supposed to. Like, I've seen guys bigger than him, possibly fatter than him, to put it bluntly, who move a lot better than he does. Samoa Joe, for instance. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I just thought that I'd go ahead and do that little bit of a cigarette burn to Kevin Owens. You know, just to pour salt on the wound, cover the grave with a little bit more dirt, you know, because I feel as though that I'm doing a great job burying him and his career, or at least what's left of his career after I'm done with it. Anyway, they said, they told us, no, we can't. And for those of you who told us, no, we can't, we told them, yes, we can. Making a joke about the slogan, the campaign slogan, rather, of the then president-elect at the time, Barack Obama, or the, nomination. I'm not sure whether or not he was the president-elect at the time, but that's not important. Semifinals match for the IC Championship. So, for those of you wondering what that means, it's basically the WWE was doing a some sort of tournament at the time, and throughout this tournament, they've had many different matches, and now they're at the semifinals of the Intercontinental Championship matchup, and there will be 2 matches to decide who will face each other in the finals this Sunday. According to them, it's not this upcoming Sunday, so don't think that I'm here to advertise it, but rather that Sunday in 2008 in the Armageddon pay-per-view, where John Morrison will face off against CM Punk. Early on, a lot of grappling and quick offense. We get some well-versed kicks and unorthodox offense by CM Punk, who drives John Morrison outside of the ring while the referee counts the first half of the match, and then they go to commercial break. Michael Cole calls a simple dragon screw leg takedown a quote leg lace, and I gotta deduct points for that for the show's final score. Frankensteiner on the top rope, and Cole calls it a hurricanrana. They are essentially the same move, but I've always been privy to call the top rope move a Frankensteiner. Morrison kicks out of the pin attempt. Off of the pin attempt, CM Punk kicks out of a backbreaker. Punt kick. Out yet again after a super kick. That's Punk kicks out yet again out of the super kick. Morrison kicks out of after Punk gets a slide slam on John Morrison. A side slam, rather. My fault. See, we all make mistakes. Even Michael Cole. But he made 2 of them. I'm pretty privy to calling a hurricanrana from the top rope. That's a Frankensteiner, Cole. Get it right. They keep taking shots. I'm an idiot. They keep showing shots of the locker room with William Regal and Layla, who are apparently dating today. At that time, I shouldn't say today, but at that time they were dating. Regal is a 60 or 65-year-old man, and Layla was in her 20s, early 20s when she joined the WWE. And she just got out of a cheerleading contract with the Miami Heat NBA basketball team. You would figure that would be more money, than the WWE, who's just keeping her as eye candy. I mean, they practically never wrestle with her. She would join up with Michelle McCool and become a half of a faction known as Lay Cool, and they would come out and call themselves Flawless. They had an interesting dynamic. But I guess you only get paid if your team wins. Of course, I'm still talking about the Miami Heat. And from what I understand, Layla was a cheerleader, a dancer for the Miami Heat, an NBA team here in the USA. Morrison counters the GTS into a small package. Pin only gets a near fall. Punk picks up the win after about 9 minutes, and he hits John Morrison with the GTS. I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Looked really solid from both men's part. An interesting dynamic. You could see that the tag team championships. The interesting dynamic comes in whenever they look at the next match in the semifinals to the Intercontinental Championship #1 contender. So basically, whoever wins the next match gets to face CM Punk at the Armageddon pay-per-view, and then they later, maybe a week later or the next day, possibly, seeing as though their pay-per-views are held on Sunday, and then their live shows are held on Monday. Their televised live shows. I mean, their pay-per-views are always live too, but you know what I mean. So it'll possibly be the Monday after the Sunday pay-per-view where they face off against each other to find out who would face the champion. Because keep in mind, this is a preliminary rather for the semifinals match. So all you have to do is win the preliminary in order to be in the semifinals bracket. And then after you win your semifinals matchup, it's kind of like the March Madness. I don't know why everybody goes so fucking crazy over fucking March Madness. To me, that's just nonsense. We're going to take a short break and I'll be right back with you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third part of the show. Third part. Hell, we barely got through the first part. But, this has been done in 3 recordings now because people want to interrupt me. For that matter, maybe I don't feel safe where I currently am. I don't know, it's like 10 o'clock. We'll see if we can't get through this obvious attempt to put a 2-hour and 11-minute TV show, a 2-hour and 11-minute wrestling show. And honestly, sometimes wrestling just feels like, just don't take this the wrong way if you're like a wrestling fan, but if you're like a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, if you've ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh just feels like a 30-minute, not even a 30-minute, possibly a 20-minute episode that's just a 20-minute advertisement for the fucking card game itself. So that's exactly what wrestling feels like sometimes. It feels like, a 2-hour, in this case, 2-hour and 11-minute TV show that's just an advertisement for their fucking pay-per-view. They could care less about putting on great matches. They just want to fill time so that they could sit there and be like, don't forget to order the pay-per-view so that you can see what happens next. Like, why? I can just look it up online, what happens. I feel like that the Super Bowl should be a pay-per-view event. Have all these fucking... can you imagine? Having all these fucking 40 or 60-year-old men paying like 4 payments of $4.99 just to see who can win the Super Bowl. Especially if their favorite team's playing. Oh my God, they'd be so pissed. Imagine that's behind a paywall. An interesting dynamic, the tag team to face off against each other in Punk versus Kofi Kingston, or a rivalry that hasn't happened yet but will happen in about 6 months or so from, of course, now, because Kofi Kingston later on in the night will take on Rey Mysterio, and as I stated before, this is just a preliminaries match. This will determine who will be in the semifinals. But this, right now, as it stands, is a preliminary to the semifinals, if that makes sense, and it should make sense because I'm the one that said it. Usually I say things that don't... I'm sorry, I almost tripped myself up there. Usually I say things and they make sense. So that's why usually I must say things that don't make sense. That's what I almost said. Well, anyway, this is an interesting dynamic because you could see the tag team champions face off against each other in CM Punk versus Kofi Kingston, or a rivalry that hasn't happened yet, but will happen in around 6 or 8 months, and that would be, of course, meeting for the first time CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. And that's exactly what happens. Spoiler alert, Rey Mysterio ends up winning the match, if I remember correctly. So, in doing so, though, it brought me back to those YouTube clips that I'd looked up so many times before, and those top 10 or top 5 lists that I used to adore growing up. And in one of those top 10 lists or whatever else, someone had ranked CM Punk number 1 as their favorite heel, and they gave a few reasons why. And one of those reasons was the fact that he was such a despicable character, and he looked like, I'm going to hate to say this, but, and honestly, I agree with Triple H whenever he said this. So Triple H, on an earlier episode of like SmackDown, said, I don't do drugs either, but yet again, I don't come out here looking like I just went on a crack binge with Amy Winehouse. Of course, he was talking about CM Punk whenever he said that. CM Punk, of course, at the time was on his high horse about, the fact that he doesn't do drugs, and the fact that he's pure at heart, pure in soul, and, it's the whole CM Punk is better than each and every one of you. And my mom hated it because, of course, she does drugs. The cat was out of the bag at that point. I'd already known the proverbial cat was out of the bag. I mean, we don't keep cats in bags at my house, but if you do that to your cats, keep them in burlap sacks or bags or whatever else, then I mean that's your thing, I guess. But I would just consider that animal cruelty. But anyway, showing the main event of last week's Monday Night Raw, shows John Cena about to beat Kane, but Jericho attempts to interfere in this match. His plans are thwarted. Jericho pulls John Cena into an ambush orchestrated by Randy Orton and Priceless. A Todd Gresham interview with John Cena. John Cena talks about his dog. At first, I didn't know where this interview was going. I was like, okay, John, we get it. You're trying to have fun at Chris Jericho. But I didn't understand how he was going to tie this into what was going to happen. John Cena's got some gift of the gab, if you will, because he had me confused here, but it's kind of like that one meme that you see, that guy, he's like, I'll be honest, at the first half, I think they got us, or whatever. Anyway, John Cena talks about his dog being a Chris Jericho fan. He talks about the dog watches Jericho on TV. Cena was home with his dog, and he would end up cleaning himself. And John Cena talks about the dog would get sick. And it made John Cena sick, seeing his dog get sick. Now that it makes sense, sorta. John Cena apparently has a son who is... Oh, I'm sorry. Jericho apparently has a son who is an absolute John Cena fanboy. Yeah. So, I'd heard this whole song and dance before, believe it or not. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. You guys are going to like this one. Especially if you know my character arc. You know my whole anime villainous story toward Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. But anyway, now it makes sense, sorta. Jericho apparently has a son who is an absolute John Cena fanboy. Saying, you can't see me to his dad, and the champ is here to his dad, and in a nutshell, Jericho's son has a case of Sami Zayn's. Now by that, here's what I mean. There was a contract signing between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And a part of that contract signing was Sami Zayn, his arm in a sling, and he had that fucking old looking NXT championship over his shoulder, and upon doing so, he was asking Kevin Owens a question, sitting across from the table from him, or standing across from the table from him. He asked Kevin Owens, he said, why are you doing this, Kevin? He said, is this because your son wore a Sami Zayn t-shirt to the first day of school, and he refused to wear a Kevin Owens t-shirt on the first day of school? And then I'm just sitting there, right? Here's me, right? I'm just sitting there. And then I'm just like, yeah, that's why we're having a wrestling rivalry. It's because my fucking son's a fan of you. You fucking cancer. Like, I cannot for the life of me believe what it was that I was hearing. I'm sorry, what the fuck? You know, because Sami Zayn doesn't exactly... It's so funny. It's so hard to explain, but it's so funny. Yeah, that's why we're having a wrestling rivalry for a fucking championship that's over your shoulder. Need I remind you that you have a broke fucking elbow because I put you through a goddamn announce table? I'm pretty sure this goes a little bit deeper than the shirt that my son wanted to wear on the first day of fucking school, you stupid dumbass. I don't know. I'm just drawing a conclusion here. Maybe it's the fact that you're a mediocre fucking champion. You're what we call in the business as a paper champion. Yeah, why are you doing this to me? Is it because your son, of course I'm speaking about Kevin Owens' son, wanted to wear a Sami Zayn t-shirt to school and not a Kevin Owens shirt? And at that point in time, like, I'd only seen highlights of their rivalry, and whenever I got to actually look at that contract signing, I was sitting there asking myself, what the fuck am I watching? Is this supposed to be Superman versus Batman? Because I don't see Superman versus Batman. It's like watching fucking Goofy, you know, from Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, holy crap. I mean, it's like watching Goofy from... It just got me all fucked up. It's like watching Goofy from fucking Looney Tunes or whatever, you know, the Disney Channel. Holy crap, I can't even make references. From the Disney Channel, face off against someone like Elmer Fudd, you know? And I couldn't tell you which one was Elmer Fudd and which one was Goofy, because not a one of them can talk. Kevin Owens can't talk. He got no promo microphone skills. He sounds like the fucking Tasmanian devil. Holy crap. I love shitting on people, especially whenever they deserve it. Anyway, that's what I synopsis that up to, was basically the fact that John Cena thought that Chris Jericho's son had a case of the Sami Zayns. If you'll remember, very early in my podcast career, I mean, we are very, very early in my podcast career. I mean, we're somewhat early. Anyway, maybe around the first 15 or 35 episodes, as much as it kills me to say that, and it's a huge margin, I remember telling you guys that I had a crush on a certain woman, and her name is Candice Michelle. Candice Michelle and Crime Time to present the next award for the best finisher in 2008. Now, if you'll remember, I told you earlier that I deducted points because they didn't use the very sexual song Legs Like That. That was American Rejects, I want to say. They did an original song for Maria, I think. Either that or it was a remix of one of the songs that they had already done, because I think that the beat to that song sounds very familiar. But anyway, they did it again. Wouldn't you believe it? Instead of playing Candice Michelle's Let Me Show You How to Move My Body, my body, they played Bringing the Hood to You, the Crime Time theme song, and I was mad about it. To present the best finisher of 2008. Okay, so Jerry Lawler has this little tidbit on commentary. He says, I don't think it's a good idea to let Crime Time get close to anything gold and valuable. with the obvious racism joke, talking about the award and possibly Candice Michelle's dress. Nominees for the best finisher go to The Undertaker and his Hell's Gates, Randy Orton and his RKO, a Shooting Star Press by Evan Bourne, KO Punch by The Big Show. Okay, so, and the winner was Evan Bourne, who could not make it to the arena because of an ankle injury. Candice Michelle, however, said that she wanted to keep the award and give it to him whenever she next seen him. However, she was interrupted by Mike Knox, the big 6'8", 285-pound. I mean, he looks like a fucking, I almost said a barbarian. Well, yeah, maybe. Barbarian, Viking. I mean, is there a difference? He looks like a Neanderthal, like a caveman. He comes out there, he's got nothing but shorts on. It looks like that he's been in the gym. And he's got hair everywhere. Mike Knox shows up and stares at Candice Michelle, and in doing so, Candice gives up the slammy to Knox. Randy Orton comes out to talk about how he wasn't nominated for Superstar of the Year. Even though he's beaten all of the men nominated, this business is more of a popularity contest at times. I feel that, Randy. I would get frustrated too. Randy's frustrated about how Evolution turned its back on him and left him high and dry because they're jealous of him. Triple H built Evolution to protect himself, and anything else is hard to imagine. And if you did go... Okay, so if Evolution was to go on any longer, I mean, let's be honest here, what exactly was the grand scheme there? Because every group, whether it's a wrestling group or whether it's some sort of like musical group, anything like that, they all have one thing in common, and that's that the people involved in those groups, eventually, what's going to end up happening is your ego is going to get the better of you. And once that happens, the group has to end. Think about it. How many groups, whether it be in professional wrestling, whether it be in other sports or whatever else, have you known about where, I mean, like G-Unit, why'd they break up? I mean, that's a bad example, but I mean, I don't know anything about G-Unit. I couldn't convince someone that I'm in G-Unit. But it just sounds like Randy's just moaning and groaning and crying about something that, doesn't even matter anymore. I get that the one common link between him and Batista, who was supposed to be his opponent for the night, but didn't end up being his opponent for the night. Well, actually, it did end up being his opponent for the night, but in a different context, and we'll get to that here in just a minute. He then goes on to challenge Triple H and Dave Batista, his two former members of Evolution, along with Ric Flair. But he then goes on to challenge H and Batista to a 2-on-3 handicap match, which of course would imply that Dave Batista and Triple H would be the two facing off against the three: Cody Rhodes, Manu, and Randy Orton. Make up his version. Holy crap! His group known as Legacy. Also, did you know ECW was Sci-Fi's most watched television broadcast for the 10th week in a row? 2008 the basketball team in question had won the baseball. Okay, so I'm about to talk about something that's completely irrelevant, or at least I think it is completely irrelevant. 2008, the baseball team in question had won the World Series, and MVP comes out to talk about his losing streak and how he's been talking at the crowd. He starts getting attitude. For some reason, he starts pointing his attention toward this man named Jimmy Rollins, talking about the fact that it took the city of Philadelphia 25 years to win anything significant. And after doing research on the topic, according to the internet, that's a great source right there, according to the internet. I didn't even cite my fucking source. Jimmy Rollins is apparently the MVP of 2023. Now, either it said that he was the MVP of 2023, or it said that he was the MVP of 2008, and the article was written in 2023, but that doesn't make any sense. So I was like, wait a minute. I was like, wait just a minute. Why would they wait until March of 2023 to write an article about a man who hasn't been relevant since 2008 whenever we're in 2023? So I thought to myself, it just makes sense that they would write this article after he had already became, MVP of the year in question, 2023. MVP versus MVC. Charlie Haas has been impersonating MVP, and in doing so, in doing a cardinal sin in pro wrestling, which is gimmick infringement. But Charlie Haas had this thing wherever he would come out each and every week, and then he would mock his opponent's gimmick, and sometimes he would end up winning. In this case, he would. Ball and elbow from MVP, it only gets a 2 count. MVC with the same ball and elbow of his own to counter by MVP. MVP went on a signature boot in the corner. He's hit 100 times in the past, and MVC dunks and hits MVP with a surprise cradle, and he wins. So this match wasn't 2.5 out of 5 stars, this match, but it happens. I mean, it was entertaining, especially to see like MVP come out and then like for whatever reason he's like getting attitude toward some random guy that no one even knows who they are. I mean, in order to understand the reference, you would have to be both a fucking wrestling fan and watch baseball. And let's be honest, we ain't got time for both of them. One of them's got to go, and it ain't baseball. Tiffany and Matt Hardy to present the award. I didn't write down what the award was, but oh, yes I did. The Slammy for Extreme Moment of the Year. The nominations go to Cena and JBL in a parking lot brawl. Edge pushes The Undertaker off of a ladder through a table. Jericho puts Shawn Michaels through the Jeritron on the highlight reel, which for those of you who don't know, was basically a TV monitor. Jericho put Shawn Michaels through that, and he had to have immediate eye surgery. Jeff Hardy's 8-foot plunge onto Sheamus. And your winner for what was the Extreme Moment of the Year in 2008, Jeff Hardy. In winning the award, he gives an acceptance speech. Jeff Hardy is one of 3 men who will be in a match for the WWE Championships. He says, I don't care if I walk out, I don't care if I get carried out, and I don't care if I crawl out. I will be the WWE Champion. Did some research, after and before, and also I watched a review a few years ago for this particular pay-per-view, and Jeff Hardy would become the champion. Not for very long, though. And that was probably his first, WWE championship run, and it wasn't anything to blink at, Yeah, I mean, if you did blink at it, it was probably gone. Jeff Hardy, he'll always be mid, 2.5 out of 3 stars at best. He probably wasn't the better Hardy brother, but it's alright. Small inconsistency from Lillian Garcia. She doesn't name Jericho's hometown, but his weight. But she did name the hometown of Jeff Hardy. So, if she's going to name, weighing and from Cameron, North Carolina, which is where Jeff Hardy's from, and then whenever Jericho comes out, she just says weighing 262 pounds, Chris Jericho. There's a cat that's staring at me right now. That fucking scared me. She's meowing at me. I guess I'm scaring her. Okay, I'm going to move away. I'm not trying to, hurt any animals. Anyway, back to what I was saying. What you're supposed to do is say, weighing so many and so many pounds. If I had any food, I'd feed her, but I don't have any food on me. Weighing so many and so many pounds, and from this and that city, and in this case it would be Jericho's from Winnipeg, I do believe. From Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Jeff Hardy versus Chris Jericho. Back suplex by Jericho on Hardy, only get a 2 count. After working Hardy over in the corner, Jeff Hardy gets dumped outside by Jericho and gets back into the ring before the 10 count by the referee. Best announced team of the ECW, which I already talked about, but they seem to have, for some reason they were pretty mad about it, was the announced team, the announcers over by the desk that were the commentary team. But anyway, best announced team, where was I? For ECW's Todd Gresham and Matt Striker. And the funny thing is, they shouldn't even have won that award if you think about it, because Todd Gresham and Matt Striker, they don't do anything except the interviews. That's all that they do. The goddamn interviews. I'm feeling really bad for this cat right here, because odds are she's going to starve to death. Either that or she's going to freeze to death tonight. I wish that I could do something for her, but I don't think that I can. I mean, it looks like a girl cat, but I don't necessarily know. And yes, I did just assume it's gender. But I mean, it doesn't necessarily look big enough to be a tomcat, and it's gone. I looked in the place where I seen it last, and I didn't see it run, didn't see it go. Oh, there it is. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Jericho counters a swanton bomb and gets, then hits the line salt and only gets a 2 count on Hardy. Hardy counters the walls of Jericho, the submission maneuver. Hardy with a small package roll-up pin, but only gets a 2 count. Hardy with a whisper in the wind, once again, only gets a 2 count. Jericho hits a twist of fate encounter and turns it into... Oh, okay. Jericho counters is what that should say. Yeah, Jericho counters a twist of fate into a code breaker and picks up the win off the 3 count. Randy Orton's segment with his group that would become Legacy. Presenters for Couple of the Year, Kelly and Kane. Kelly says, "Love is a wonderful thing, And she says it like she's asking a question, and she's looking at Kane. And Kane says, the last time I was involved in a relationship, I tombstoned a priest. Moving on, she says, the nominations for the award are Santino and Beth Phoenix, Edge and Vicky Guerrero, William Regal and Layla, Finlay and Hornswoggle. Winner, Edge and Vicky Guerrero. So Vicky comes out to give her award acceptance speech like everyone else has throughout the night, and keeps saying, "Excuse me! I said excuse me!" Much like her stick was at the time, because everyone would boo her out of the building. And whenever she comes out, someone misses their cue, or at least that's what I think. I mean, I could be wrong, because she just says it so many times, like, "I said excuse me! Excuse me!" And then I'm just sitting there like, okay, I get it, excuse you, you know? And Jerry Lawler on commentary says, "Okay, you've been excused. You can go now." And I'm just like, God damn it. He always comes up with the best things to say. Even though you're being booed out of the building, she still says, "Thank you." And I'm just sitting there like, thank you? For what? For booing me? Santino is outraged, and he comes out to the podium to protest that the wrong person won the award for Couple of the Year. If anything, Vicky deserves to be Cougar of the Year, he said. But honestly, I don't agree with him on that one. Because to me, she's not even a cougar. Like Vicky Guerrero is do not touch, do not look at. She's disgusting. Santino and Beth Phoenix versus Hornswoggle and Finlay. And this match came about because apparently Santino, he comes out, right? And then afterwards he's like, "I demand a match between one of," here's his exact words. He says, "I demand a match between one of the other nominees." For, because he was a nominee, someone else had to be a nominee. So, as you just heard earlier, one of the other nominees was Finlay and Hornswoggle. I know that I went over them very fast, but if you go back and listen, Finlay and Hornswoggle were one of the nominees, while I was also talking about that cat that I can't find. But it's okay. They get in the match, and they do a little bit of back and forth banter, and the match starts. A little highlights that happen, and after a frog splash, it's over. And it's funny. That's, I suppose, a form of entertainment, but it leaves a lot more to be desired. As far as physicality goes for a wrestling match, I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. Yeah, it's funny. Don't get me wrong. I mean, a small person, I don't want to say the word because what we commonly refer to as and it's a derogatory term, I'm sure, midget. Someone under, 5 foot ends up doing a frog splash onto an Italian who seems to be somewhat, he seems to have he's a glutton for punishment, let's put it that way. Anyway, he ends up, for whatever reason, losing in like record time to a person under 5 foot. It was maybe 4'3", maybe. Presenting the Slammy for Diva of the Year, Teddy Long and Melina, and if I'm right, her last name was Melina Prez. And the nominations are Beth Phoenix, Mickie James, Kelly Kelly, Michelle McCool. And the winner is Beth Phoenix. Keep in mind, Beth Phoenix at this point in time just got done losing a match in, I want to say record time, but I could be wrong. Anyway, Beth Phoenix just got done losing a match, and afterwards, well, technically she didn't lose, but that's not the point. I mean, it was a tag team match challenge, and her team did lose, so I guess technically, even though she didn't lose, technically she did lose, because her team lost. On behalf of all the dominant divas around the world, I accept this award. Beth then hits Melina, and then Melina hits her with a forearm and knocks Beth on her back, and Melina gains the dominant position momentarily until Santino gets behind Beth to sort of cheer her on. That's right, you do that, you do that thing, whatever. And then Beth gets her head pushed into Santino's groin, and he starts making noises consistent with throwing up, like bleh, bleh, like that. And then the segment ends. Alicia Fox and Joey Styles presenting the OMG Moment of the Year. The nominees are CM Punk cashes in Money in the Bank to win the World Heavyweight Championship from Edge. The Edge, Undertaker chokeslams Edge off a ridiculously long ladder and puts him in a hole in the ring, and then fire shoots out of said hole in said ring. Edge gets put into a and then the lights turn off and then they go all blue as the fucking fire just almost consumes Edge. It's hard to explain, really, but imagine someone gets chokeslammed into a hole, and, I mean, we've talked about before how I'm under the impression that The Undertaker has some sort of supernatural powers, because he's been able to summon lightning on more than one occasion, might I add, and I'm almost certain that it's not fucking a hologram or a projector, because he's literally set the fucking turnbuckles to the wrestling ring. You know those four corners that hold those ring ropes in place for a boxing or a wrestling ring? Yeah, well, I've seen him set those on fire with lightning. So I'm almost certain that that's real lightning, and I'm not sure how he's summoning it, but okay, let's go with that. Anyway, Undertaker pushes Edge off of a ridiculously long ladder, and somehow there's fire in the hole that he just got done pushing him in. Mayweather breaks the Big Show's nose. John Cena returns at Royal Rumble at number 30. Alicia Fox and Joey Styles presenting the OMG Moment of the Year for 2008. And the winner is CM Punk cashing in on Edge. He gives an acceptance speech, as does everyone else. He thanks Edge and Batista, and then he pulls out a list of people that he would like to thank, and I didn't catch all of them, and for that matter, I wasn't in the mood to. It was taking me far too long to get this episode done, but I decided to just write down the ones that I maybe understood. Anyway, a part of his acceptance speech, he would like to thank Edge and Batista. He pulls out a list of people that he would want to thank, and he says, Chaz, the meanest ESP, Selena, Mike Smith, and Rocky Balboa. And now it's time for what presumably I do believe is one of 3 main events that they coined. But here's the thing. You can call it you can say that this is one of 3 main events, but it's not. Honestly, there's only one main event. Anyway, as Kofi Kingston faces off against Rey Mysterio. as I've told you before, that was a match that was planned to happen for the preliminary finals of the Intercontinental Championship match. According to Michael Cole, this is the first match these two are together in one-on-one action, and I wouldn't doubt it. Drop kick by Rey Mysterio, and he only gets a 2 count after going for the pin, and Kofi now taking control of this match as Rey Mysterio gets worked over a little bit by Kingston. Kofi with a jackknife cover only gets a 2 count on Rey. Rey wins unexpectedly off of the cradle, and he gets a 3 count to win. And I thought, wow, this match is over already, and sure enough, Kofi Kingston goes in to shake Rey's hand, and he shakes it. He practically, holds the man's hand, holds his hand up in victory along with the referee. The first time Rey Mysterio will go one-on-one with CM Punk, and would be a later rivalry that they would revisit about 6 months later. About August of the next 2 years, CM Punk would even mockingly sing happy birthday to Rey Mysterio's daughter. He got in the ring where this man's wife and children were, and he, oh my God, like, this is what I was talking about, CM Punk being such a dreadful heel. I wouldn't say dreadful. I mean, he was really good as a heel, but whenever I say dreadful, I don't mean dreadful as in, like, bad. I mean dreadful as in, like, really good. I know that doesn't make sense. I know if there's someone out there who gets what I'm saying. Just his attitude and everything were so goddamn good. Like, you couldn't be mad at this man for any reason whatsoever. He would manipulate a narrative where you were the bad guy and he was the good guy, despite the fact that he was the bad guy. That's how good at manipulating he was. But anyway, what I mean to say is that there's this part that I'd seen on earlier YouTube videos and stuff of that nature, wherever he would mockingly sing happy birthday to this 9-year-old little girl. And it went something like this. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Leah. Because her name was Aaliyah. The point, of course, that I'm trying to make is that he was such a good bad guy. And of course, hopefully, here's one for the record too. I do not own the rights to the birthday song. Believe it or not, there was actually a lawsuit done on someone who sung the happy birthday song in a diner. And the employees of said diner, as well as the diner itself, got sued. And you'll never guess who owns the rights to the birthday song. Warner Brothers. There was a lawyer in that diner that I mentioned, and he apparently worked for Warner Brothers. And he sued them. So, with that said, and I just sung almost like a version of the birthday song without really crediting my source, what I'd like to do now is say, don't sue me, Warner Brothers. And I do not own the rights to that song. Or any other songs, for that matter, that have been played on this podcast in the past or will be played on this podcast in the future. Anyway, moving on. What I'd like to do now is present you with our next award, I guess. Yes. Okay. WWE offers. So this is another one of those things that they do whenever they come back from commercial, wherever they do the whole "Did you know?" and then they'll play background music while they'll show you something that WWE does that makes them such a great company. Holy shit. Yeah, they're so great. WWE offers military personnel free tickets to live events in the USA. I wonder if that includes WrestleMania and other pay-per-views. Mr. Kennedy and Eve Torres present an award for the Match of the Year nominations. And you remember that whole shtick that I went on earlier about the fact that they weren't playing certain songs? Well, I can understand why they didn't do it with Tiffany. Hang on, I'll go back to that one. I can understand why they didn't do it with Joey Styles as well, because Alicia Fox is the only one. Oh, okay, Tiffany. I'm sorry, Melina Perez. Like, Melina, her song is really, like, choppy and ugly. It's, I suppose, my opinion, but if you listen to that compared to Teddy Long's theme song, you would know what it is that I was talking about. And they sort of they sort of cheated with the Kane and Kelly Kelly, because they played both their songs, sort of. And I know what a lot of you are thinking, why are we talking about wrestling theme songs? You know, this is just like a little tidbit that I'd noticed. And then I was like, why do they keep playing the guy's theme song? Like, the woman's theme song is so much more sexier and, sensual and, you know, better. Let me go back to, I thought that there was something to do with Tiffany. Anyway, I guess it's not important. Like, I can see why they didn't do it with Tiffany, because of course Tiffany doesn't exactly have a wrestling theme song. She's just, one of the people who were almost put in charge of something. But I don't understand why they did it, why they used Mr. Kennedy's theme song and not Eve Torres's, because, as explained before, if you haven't already heard me explain it before, I did about 2 weeks ago, she looks good to me. She's got everything I want. She's got everything I need. Sounds a lot better than some dickhead screaming into a microphone, Kennedy! Okay, anyway, as I stated before, Match of the Year nominees. Thank you for blinding me with your fucking headlights. Shawn Michaels. Oh, never mind. I already gave out the fucking... Damn it. Mr. Kennedy and Eve Torres present the award for the Match of the Year nominations. WrestleMania 24 Money in the Bank ladder match. 2008 Royal Rumble match. SummerSlam. Undertaker versus Edge, Hell in a Cell. That's the one wherever he got slammed into a hole and there was fire that came out of it that we were just talking about. WrestleMania 24, Undertaker, WrestleMania 24, Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair. Shawn Michaels wins and he comes out to give an acceptance speech, but he feels like the match with Ric Flair will always have a special place in his heart. But then JBL's entrance music plays. JBL comes out whenever he does. Shawn Michaels sort of backs up a little bit. So if you don't know, there's a sort of a storyline, kayfabe storyline, going on between JBL and Shawn Michaels. And this story centers around the fact that Shawn Michaels is now broke. He's apparently, for whatever reason, he can't afford to pay his loans or his house off. And for those of you who don't know, JBL is apparently a stinking fucking rich. After becoming JBL of Wall Street. And he's there because he's the employer. Yes, he's the employer of Shawn Michaels. He pays Shawn Michaels' bills, basically. So, every time that Michael sees him, he's always like, you know, taking a back seat and all the time like giving him the yes sir, I understand what'll happen if I don't listen to you, yes sir, you know. Basically, JBL is Walmart. No disrespect to Walmart, you know, but they're a little much, you know. There's a lot of people who would agree with me on that one. Anyway, JBL comes out. He basically stops Shawn Michaels from giving a heartfelt speech, and instead he takes the award and he says, as far as I'm concerned, me beating John Cena at the Great American Bash is the match of the year. And then he walks away and then he says, let's go, Shawn. Shawn Michaels follows him with his head down, looking at the ground, you know, almost like he's just being forced to. The next match is the 2-on-3 handicap match as Triple H and Batista take on Legacy, Randy Orton, Manu, and Cody Rhodes. Taz says Edge has a 1 in 3 chance of losing in the match. Okay, so they're talking about the pay-per-view match from the following Sunday that they're about to have in like 6 days. And Taz, one of the commentators, he ends up saying that Edge has a 1 in 3 chance of losing. And that's not math. That is wrong. In order for Edge to have a 1 in 3 chance of losing, it's really hard to explain. Just let me explain on what I put as my notes here, as we get some jackass. But I have to disagree with him. If anything, he has a 2 in 3 chance of losing. He has a 1 in 3 chance of winning, not losing. That's why the numbers game is not in his favor. That's what I put down here on my notes, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong, you know. He has a 2/3 chance of winning. No, I'm sorry. Yes, a 2/3 chance of losing, rather. That's why the numbers are not in his favor. He has a 1 in 3 chance, however, of winning. If that makes sense, and it should make sense because, as I've established earlier on in the program, anything that I say makes sense because I make it make sense. If that makes sense, and it should make sense because I'm the one that said it. Triple H starts off against Cody Rhodes. And now H makes the tag to Batista. Then Batista roughs up Cody Rhodes. Manu comes in and saves his partner, but instead of trying to save his partner, he inadvertently gets thrown into Cody Rhodes, knocking them both out of the ring. That's something that they end up replaying like 3 or 4 times. Like, watch this. Manu just got hit right into Cody Rhodes. They were like the Three Stooges, you know, always smacking into each other. And it threw them both outside the ring. 2 near fall by Randy Orton, just to keep Triple H away from the opposite corner. They apparently say that this is the 811th episode of Monday Night Raw live here tonight in Philadelphia. This episode, and this will be the 105th episode. If I haven't already said it before, I'm going to say it again, of the Gut Wrench podcast. Manu only gets a 2 count for his efforts on Triple H. Cody gets the tag and starts to take control of the match with a snapmare takedown with a reverse chin lock. Orton gets the tag from Cody and starts to keep Triple H on the ground. Triple H with a back suplex, putting the pressure on Randy. They side chin lock, creating space between the two of them. Now Rhodes off the tag. Triple H gets the tag, reverses a bulldog attempt by Cody Rhodes, knocking Rhodes out of the ring, as we get some jackass who ends up interrupting me once again. So Triple H ends up reversing a bulldog, as Cody Rhodes had H in the corner, and now Rhodes is outside the ring thanks to the reverse by Triple H from that bulldog that I mentioned earlier, as we get some other jackass who decides to interrupt me. I'm sure you can all hear the tires moving on this vehicle. The tag gets made to Triple H, and the tag gets made by Triple H and Rhodes to Batista and Manu. Cody Rhodes off the crossbody, but it got interrupted when Batista shoved Manu into him. So that makes like the second time that they've bumped into each other. But this time it was Cody Rhodes who bumped into Manu and not Manu who bumped into Cody Rhodes. And this time it was Cody Rhodes who bumped into Manu, who was in midair, might I add, because Cody was going for a crossbody, but instead Manu got used as a shield. Randy Orton picks up the win off the RKO almost instantaneously, and this may have been where the whole, from out of nowhere came from, because Orton slides in the ring, waits for Batista to turn around, and afterwards hits him with the RKO. 1, 2, 3. From out of nowhere, Cole. From out of nowhere. We didn't see Randy Orton. Look what happened. And of course, they play the replay like 3 fucking times. It's like, it doesn't matter how many camera angles that you show it to me in. I've seen it 3 times already. I don't want to see it a 4th time. Like, get on with the show. God damn it. Randy Orton picks up the win off of the RKO. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was slow paced and kind of had no idea how to protein? What the fuck? How to pertain to itself, like the referee. Okay, I know exactly what I'm talking about here. I'm sorry, I had to reinvigorate my own memory here. So the referee, for whatever reason, even though this is a 2-on-3 handicap tag team match, the referee seems to have no idea how exactly tag teams work. Throughout the match, Manu, thank you, Manu, who had this, usually whenever you tag someone in, the referee will like break the two who aren't legal, like break them apart and then be like, all right, strict rules, you go outside, and I've seen him tag in, so that means that you come in. Well, Batista didn't see the tag in, but the referee seen the tag in. And unfortunately for Batista, that means that he thought that Manu was the legal man. It is just a bad case of the referee not doing his job, because the referee had he would have created some space between Manu and Batista and then said, hey, Batista, Randy Orton tagged in. You may not have seen it, but I did. But instead, the referee just, I mean, he was trying to show Batista, but he wasn't exactly doing his job, you know? Like, on top of that, whenever you do have a situation where someone has tagged in, but they haven't gotten into the ring yet, you're supposed to count. The referee did not count. I swear to God, these referees, they're worse than the referees at the NFL, and I don't even know what those referees are like, but I've been told some shit. The ring, but doesn't make. Anyway, what I was trying to say was that it makes it extremely confusing whenever a referee doesn't exactly do their job. Whenever the person gets the pin, the referee's supposed to notify the other person who just got tagged out, hey, look, he just got tagged out. The referee was a little bit trying to do that, you know, he was giving the right hand signs, but he wasn't like notifying the superstars. You know, so the referee was in the background almost like giving mime hand signs and not really like actually giving the superstars, hey, you know, he's supposed to be out of here. On top of that, the referee is supposed to count whenever someone tags in and or tags out. So the referee did none of those things. So for that reason, like I'm a fucking shark on Shark Tank. So for those reasons, I'm out. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's not what the referee did. Okay, anyway, there's a recap that happens, and it recaps what I already talked about earlier from the whole John Cena ambush, and they play a version. Okay, so Dolph Ziggler faces off against R-Truth, and here's something that bothered me. They play a version of Dolph Ziggler's theme song that I don't remember hearing. It's like a generic tune. For his first theme song, I thought I remembered I Am Perfection. But instead of I Am Perfection, or the remix to I Am Perfection, I'm Here to Show the World. Or the remix that I made on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. If you're interested, I will leave a link in the description below, even though I usually forget to do that. Once again, I'm going to have to deduct points from Lillian. She said Dolph Ziggler was from Hollywood, California, when in fact he is from Hollywood, Florida. As R-Truth faces off against Dolph Ziggler, R-Truth is running circles around Dolph Ziggler quite literally, then stumps him with a kick to the jaw. Ziggler gets a 2 count off of the elbow drops to Truth. Ziggler with a chin lock, keeping R-Truth on the ground, but Ziggler able to battle out and get away from. Okay, well that doesn't make sense. Truth able to battle out is what I meant to say. That's what my note says. And get away from Ziggler. Ziggler wins via count out. The referee counts to 10, and Ziggler at the last second is able to make it into the ring thanks to a well-timed kick to the side of the head to R-Truth on the outside of the ring. A WWE had produced. Oh, this is another one of their. Did you know? WWE had produced 11 DVDs that had hit number 1 on the sports chart of this year, and it made more than the NBA, NFL, UFC, and Olympics and NHL combined. Not sure why that's a like they're trying to flex on how much money that they can make out of DVD revenue, and I'm not sure why that's a flex, but all right. Superstar of the Year, and your nominees are Edge, Jericho, Cena, Batista, Jeff Hardy, Triple H. Stephanie McMahon is presenting the award, and the winner is Chris Jericho. He looks around all paranoid because John Cena said that by the end of the night he's going to get him. Jericho gets in the ring. Jericho says he's not a hypocrite, unlike all of these people. And then he goes on to say that he's not a liar. He's not a cheater. Jericho says that he's a model citizen. Jericho says that there's a difference between him and John Cena because John Cena is a pathetic, pandering people pleaser. In Jericho's eyes, you can't be... In Jericho's eyes, you can't please everyone, and he's tired of trying to please everyone. So in order to prove to John Cena that he is the best in the world, he is going to defeat John Cena and take John Cena's World Heavyweight Championship away from him. Something that means so much to John Cena, but it means even more to me, is what he says. Jericho's promo here was really good, in my opinion. He laid out his motive, and it was clear cut and dry what he had in store for John Cena. As we go to our main event, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize that this this episode has been the longest that I've had thus far. Episode 105 has been the longest. I suppose that I could have cut out some of the stuff, such as the fact that Crime Time was racist. Or, they weren't racist, but rather they were being treated as though that they were racist. Everything that had to do with, oh, well, they didn't use this person's theme song, and I was mad about it. I suppose that I could have watered this review down, but I felt as though that would have been a disservice to everyone who was listening. So I decided that it was a good idea just to put in my best foot forward. And condensing a 2-hour and 11-minute show into an hour of a review was very, very difficult. Because it took me 4 days to write these fucking notes. Everything else withholding, my phone kept dying, and the fact is that I can't use my headphone jack. Okay, Jack, do you want to know what I have to use? I have to use this lightning port. Not only as my phone charges, but there is no dual lightning port. I can't charge my phone and record my podcast at the same time because there is no headphone jack, as I just got done saying, Jack. So what that means is I have to choose between charging my phone whenever it's almost dead or recording my podcast whenever it's almost dead. Or I could just charge my phone, wait for it to get to like 80, 90%, then record my podcast. I get what you guys are saying, but it's not that easy. Okay, Jack? As we go to our main event, Champions versus Champion, as John Cena, the world champion, faces off against Edge. Cena with a bulldog on Edge, and the crowd starts booing. Edge gets the first pin and only gets a 2 count. Cena with a throwback face buster, but Edge gets up very quickly, almost no-selling it. John Cena with a flurry of offense, looking for the 5-knuckle shuffle. What a rally by both men. And by rally, I mean they were countering each other like crazy. Looking for the 5-knuckle shuffle, a rally, getting behind each other 2 to 3 times. There was one time where Cena would get behind Edge, and then Edge would get behind Cena and try to do a move, and then Cena would get behind Edge again, and then Edge would try to do a move while Cena was behind him, or Cena would get behind him and then try to do a move, whether it was a suplex or a wrist lock or, trying to throw him to the ground, whatever else. What a rally, countered by both men behind one another. All those trying to get behind one another 2 or 3 times at a time. And now Cena off the counter. Oh, okay. Cena gets hit with a spear. But instead of it being a spear, you would think that it was a spear. But instead of it being a spear, Cena laid edge on the mat by dodging the spear that he was going for. And he gets him in an STFU, which apparently is an acronym, or it means shut the fuck up. And I didn't know that. But the STF is actually a submission maneuver in professional wrestling. But John Cena calls it the STFU. Jericho interfered, so your winner by disqualification is Edge. Jericho was attacking Cena. Triple H attacking Edge. Then Jeff Hardy, from out of nowhere, shows up to attack Edge. And then by the end of the match, Triple H, the one of the number one contenders, Triple H would end up clearing the ring out from both from both Jeff Hardy and Chris Jericho. No, that's not right. From both Edge. No, not it. Yes. Oh my God. Let me look at my notes again. Hang on. Okay. Yes. So that's what would happen, basically. Jeff Hardy, Triple H, and Edge. Yes. Yes. That's exactly what happened. Jeff Hardy, Triple H, and Edge would be all in the ring, and they would be vying for a position of dominance, and basically trying to one-up each other while they were in the ring, just fighting amongst themselves. And Triple H would end up throwing like everyone out of the ring. Keep in mind that the main event match that I was just talking about is already over. And then they fade to black whenever Triple H's music plays, simply because he had already cleared the ring out of any potential participants who were already in it. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of the Gut Wrench Podcast. My name is Mocha. This is the Gut Wrench Podcast. And good night, everybody. That's a wrap.